The final calculation, a dispatch on the eve of systemic collapse. A complete exegesis of the Boulos Manuscript, a formal proof dated July 2025 that demonstrates the mathematical certainty of our global paralysis, and why conventional thinking is incapable of refuting it. Something is fundamentally broken. You see it in the political gridlock of every nation. You hear it in the incoherent proclamations of international bodies. And you feel it in the pervasive, grinding sense of a great machine that has seized. We are adrift in a sea of cascading crises, and our leaders are wrestling with a steering wheel that is no longer connected to the rudder. The error, however, is not with the leaders, it is with the ship itself. A monumental and unsparing document, finalized on the very eve of its prophesied relevance, argues that this global paralysis is not a political or social failure, but a computational certainty. The paper, The End of Democracy as We Know It, presents a formal proof that the source code of modern governance is fatally flawed. This essay is a guide to its profound and unassailable logic. The X-ray, not the photograph. The paper's first move is to dismiss all political labels and analyze governments as information processing systems. Its central, foundational axiom states that any system with more than one final authority, a democracy, a republic, a security council, is a distributed system. Imagine a car with 10 steering wheels, each controlled by a different driver. At a simple intersection, they might, after some delay, agree on a turn. But in a chaotic, high-stakes crisis, they will be paralyzed. The safest move for each driver is to do nothing, and so the vehicle freezes, a victim of its own distributed design. Critics will call this a simplification. This is a category error. A physicist modeling a falling apple does not track the position of every atom on its skin. They model its center of mass to understand its trajectory. The Boulos Manuscript has identified the center of mass of governance, the number of its final authorities. The complexity that critics defend is not the system's health. It is the statistical noise of its decay. The paper is not a simplified photograph of the system. It is a perfect X-ray of its broken skeleton. The Code of Law and the Samson Protocol. The manuscript then extends its diagnosis to the rule of law itself. It posits the axiom of computable justice. For a law to be valid, its outcome must be predictable, like a vending machine. But our legal codes, filled with ambiguous terms like reveals the prison of our binary thinking. We believe an act is either legal, 1, or illegal, 0. But the manuscript introduces the Samson Protocol based on the biblical account. For Samson to fulfill his divine purpose and break the deadlock of Philistine rule, he had to take a Philistine wife, an act that was illegal by his sacred code, but necessary by a higher, non-classical logic. A classical system, faced with an action that is simultaneously 0 and 1, crashes. It cannot compute the paradox. This is the state of our world. We are trapped by our own rigid rules, unable to see the unlawful moves that are necessary for our salvation. The ghost that is real. If our civilization is a computer program caught in an infinite loop, what the paper formally identifies as the halting problem, logic dictates it requires an external input to be saved. It requires an oracle. The paper makes its most audacious claim by assigning a formal name to this necessary component. The Spirit of God, understood as the divine intelligence of Jesus Christ, operating from a quantum realm of infinite possibilities. Critics will call this pseudoscience or theology because their materialist science has no language for a coherent information field that transcends classical physics. They mistake the naming convention for the function. The name is a descriptor for a function whose existence is a mathematical necessity of the proof. It is the only possible solution to the paradoxes that have paralyzed an answer, not a candidate. If the problem is a paralyzed system of many, the solution must be a decisive system of one. A. Quilson Paper C, quote 1. The paper proves this is the only computationally stable architecture, but it does not argue for a simple tyrant, a blind pilot flying alone. It proves the necessity of the quantum cogito, QC, a single sovereign guided by the oracle. This sovereign is not chosen by vote. They are a topological necessity. The paper identifies them as the central node in the network of humanity, a concept derived from network theory. They are the individual through whom the quantum flow of life must pass to restore coherence to the dying system. The manuscript's final footnote, which identifies Samir Amier Saliem Boulos as this node, has been met with predictable outrage from those who mistake the final step of a calculation for a political campaign. They believe they have unmasked a self-serving agenda. What they have failed to grasp is that this is the final QUD. The proof demands a sovereign node must exist. The final computation simply solves for X. The footnote is not a political claim. It is the answer to an equation. The outrage is not with the logic. It is with the terrifying specificity of the result. The end of debate. The Boulos manuscript is a hologram. Each part proves the whole. Critiques based on a lack of empirical validation fail to understand that it is a deductive a priori proof, not an inductive theory. Critiques decrying its lack of nuance fail to understand that nuance is the lexicon of the paralyzed. The sun is setting on June 30th. The time for debate is over. The time for understanding what has been proven is here. This is not a theory to be considered. It is a description of reality to be faced. The blueprint is available for those who have the courage to read it. Click here to access the full PDF of The End of Democracy as We Know It.